Welcome to Biz Help for You with host Candy Messer. Entrepreneurs like to focus on the big picture, like profitability, success, and a smooth-running organization. But there always seems to be those little things like taxes, employee compensation, laws, regulations, and more. Now you can get the answers you need in one place. Join us today as we break it all down for you. Now, here's your host, Candy Messer.
Hello and welcome to Biz Help for You with Candy Messer. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you found the information on last week's show, Effective versus Productive Work, informative. If you were unable to join us and would like to listen to the show, links can be found on our YouTube and Facebook pages, as well as multiple favorite podcast platforms. If you'd like to receive notifications on when our podcasts have been uploaded, please like and subscribe. If there are topics you'd find beneficial or questions you have, please feel free to reach out to me at media@abandp.com. Now, let's learn a little bit about our guest today. Danna Olivo is a business growth strategist and CEO of MarketAtomy, LLC. Her passion is working with small, first-stage entrepreneurs to ensure that they start out on the right foot and stay on the path to financial freedom. Known as the business birthing specialist, Danna understands the intricacies involved in starting and running a successful business. Her efforts extend beyond the initial strategic planning process on into the implementation and monitoring phase. She's recently launched the first e-learning environment specifically targeting small micro businesses called MarketAtomy Academy. A graduate of the University of Central Florida's College of Business, Danna holds degrees in both Marketing and Management Information Systems, and MIS. She brings more than 40 years of strategic planning experience in business structures, marketing, and business development, both nationally and internationally. Danna is not only a professional business growth strategist, but is a public speaker and best-selling author on Amazon. She's published 5 books, the latest, Social or Sociopathic, dropped May 17th of this year. So Danna, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Candy. I'm glad to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you talking about this topic today. But before we get into the meat of the topic, I always like to ask my guests to tell me a little bit more about themselves and, how they got into their industry. So if you want to give us a little bit more background and how you became a growth strategist, I'd love to hear it.
Sure, no, definitely. Well, 40 years is a long career, so so we'll give you a very high level view.
Sure.
I spent about 30 years in the architectural, engineering, and construction side of the industry, working through every logistical cycle within the construction, within the AEC industry is what we abbreviate it to, primarily in the marketing and business development side. In 2009, I was laid off from one of the largest construction management companies. And at the time, the entire world was going through the same economic recession that everybody else was.
Right.
But the only country coming out of it faster than anybody was Brazil. So I took myself into Brazil to create inroads for companies here in the US that were struggling to keep their doors open and keep their field people working, and partnering with Brazilian companies in preparation for the FIFA and the World Cup game. I mean, the FIFA and the Olympic game. Yeah. So when I got back, I started working with, when I was down there, just before I came back, I had a very serious accident, which laid me up for a while. When I finally got back to the United States, I had a lot of those small companies, those people who were laid off at the same time I was. They had started their own business. And in the process of working with them, I realized that these individuals, although they had good products or services to offer, didn't know how to build a business around that product or service. So that's how MarketAtomy came about. It was a means of explaining and teaching these individuals how to build their business for growth.
And there's some similar things happening even now, right? Where there's probably a lot of people who wanted to start businesses because they've been laid off or unable to work. And so it sounds like a very similar story.
We've had an 83% increase in new business license applications since the beginning of COVID. So, yes.
I don't doubt that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because on the one hand, it's been a struggle, for businesses, but on the same time, it's a great opportunity to start, especially if someone has wanted to and they've been working a full-time job, and now, here's an opportunity that they can invest some
Right.
time in that. So that's why I
Right.
wanted to talk about this today too, talking about the small business and what they can do to actually begin, growing their companies, because I think it's a very timely topic.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. No, I fully agree. I
right.
fully agree. So,
So,
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so, I mean, obviously you were able to start this business because, something in the environment was, forcing you basically to do something new, but, now you've been doing that for a while. So why is it still so important to you? And what is your passion behind it?
Well, first of all, it's still a passion with me because I've had two failed businesses in the past. So I've been there, done that. I understand what first stage businesses are going through in the process of trying to launch and grow a business. I'm also, being a strategist, I understand that there is a process to doing that. Many entrepreneurs, what happens is they decide they have a great idea that they want to launch a business on, but the problem is they jump into business and they start spending thousands of dollars on marketing, marketing on different things that is not necessarily needed in the very beginning. And you being in the bookkeeping and payroll side of things, you understand exactly what I'm talking about. So what I've done, I went back to school and got my degrees. And until I went back to school and got my degrees in business marketing and MIS, I didn't realize what I didn't know about running a business. And that's why I failed before. So when I finally, pardon?
Okay, that's so true. Or not having that background knowledge when people are starting the business, because they have expertise in a certain area, but they don't necessarily know everything that goes into it.
Right. And we go into business as small business owners, we go into business wearing all the hats. And we think that we have to be able to do it all in order to save money. But in actuality, what's happening is you're losing money by trying to do things that you're not equipped to do. You'd actually save money by bringing in, experts in different areas, in bookkeeping, in legal, in, all of this. I mean, nowadays with the way the economy is, the gig economy is growing like crazy. There's no reason to hire people if you don't need to, until you get to a point where you can't rely on the virtual environment anymore. My entire design staff, everybody is made up virtually from around the world, and we work fine.
Yeah. It's definitely a new way to work, though, too. I mean, some people will still think that you have to be in the same location or the same state or something, but you're right. You can really have people in different locations and still get the work done.
Right. And, and nowadays with the way things are, you have to be able to move quickly. You have to be able to delegate as much as possible, and you focus on what you do right. When I originally rebranded MarketAtomy back in 2015, and I developed our brand, which is the MarketAtomy concept, my way of explaining to business owners who did not have business experience was I built it around what we call the MarketAtomy concept, which is comparing a business to the human body. Okay. And the way we did that is in the heart of the human body, that's your passion. That's what drives you. That's what motivates you. It's the same thing in business. The heart of the business is what motivates you. Why do you do what you do for your customers? What is that passion behind what you do? Well, up in the brain, that's where the signals are sent. That's where to the heart, in the human body. But in the business, up in the brain, you have your playbook. That's where your systems, your processes, your product or service requirements are. Everything is up in the brain. That is your playbook. And that playbook is what is needed by the heart in order to build that message that's going to go out through the veins of the body, which are your marketing channels, to the body, which is your market. And when you think about it, there's one component that is equally as important as all of those in order to bring customers through the door, and that's you. You're the soul of the business. It's your culture that drives that business. And so it's important to understand that within all of those components, if you don't have those in place, you're not going to have customers coming through the door.
Right.
You know, they're not going to know about you. They're not going to be able to experience what it is you're selling, you know, anything. So this is what I try and explain to early stage entrepreneurs is there's a strategy.
Right.
There's a strategy to bringing those customers through the door. And after all, that's what business is all about, is revenue. And you can't have revenue without customers.
Right. That's true. Well, and a lot of what you're saying, I think, is kind of counterintuitive to someone who is necessarily, you know, thinking like, I'm going to start a business and I don't have a lot of money, so I can't pay for help and I have to wear all of the hats. And, you know, and they don't realize that it's probably taken them a lot longer to do the work. And if they were able to outsource some of those tasks and pay someone for that, they would have that time to actually go out and do the marketing and bring in the customers and have the revenue. But it's hard for people to sometimes see that, especially if they've never been in business before. They don't necessarily know how to actually properly, you know, reach out and have that help.
And it's equally important to understand that when you concentrate on one of the areas and not the other areas, okay, you may get to a point where you're able to convert and bring those customers in. But if you are not focused on the operations side or on the aftermarket side or the creating, you know, loyal customers, chances are you're going to get that. You're going to lose that customer as fast as you got it, because you're not meeting their expectations. So that's why this human body analogy is so important, because it takes into consideration not only the marketing side and the message side, but it takes into consideration what are the systems and processes you put in place that are going to meet the expectations. Where are your touch points? Where are your customers or your prospects going to come in touch with your brand? And what are their expectations at every one of those? It seems like it's a lot to take in, but it's systematic. And so with my MarketAtomy Academy, this is what I'm bringing in to what the Academy is all about. It's based on a systematic approach to launching and growing your business. And it answers the questions, what do I do first? What do I do next? Does that make sense?
I think, and that's a great analogy too. I've never actually heard someone use the body as an analogy, but I love that analogy, you know, and that is helpful for people to understand a little bit about, you know, things you need to do so your business isn't failing, right? So you can focus on the marketing and bring in other clients. But what do you think are other reasons besides just not focusing on that you might say to someone who's thinking of starting a business, you need to be careful of this so you don't fail?
Oh goodness. Well, there's a lot of information, data out there as to why first stage businesses fail. Okay. You know, lack of leadership, lack of funding, you know, all of that. My belief is it's none of those. It's lack of understanding. It's lack of knowledge. If you had that knowledge, if you knew how to develop a cash flow, if you knew how to market or sell, if you knew how to build an effective team, okay, you'd be able to work through those roadblocks where you would stumble as a first stage entrepreneur. And that's what the Academy is all about, is it brings that education program to early stage businesses so they can follow a sequential, you know, they don't have to follow it linearly, okay? But there is still a process. And the Academy is built along 5 different phases of growth that all businesses go through, not just small businesses. First, you have the see it stage. The see it stage is where you visualize, you have your idea. You know it's what we call a napkin stage business, okay? You've got the idea, you pretty much know what you want to do, that type deal. But then you go into the prove it stage. The prove it stage is where you take your idea out to the market and you start getting feedback and you find out whether people are willing to spend their hard-earned dollars to purchase whatever it is you're selling, and if there's a large enough market for you to make a profit. Okay. Too many small business owners go in and they're in thousands of dollars before they realize people just don't want what they're buying.
Right.
Okay. And then you move into what I call the build it phase. Phase number 3. The build it phase is, okay, you've proven, you've had the idea, you've proven its viability. Okay. Now you need to build the business around it, the business model. Okay. This is where you can start putting your systems and your processes into place. This is also where you start earning revenue. Okay. This is where you identify who your customers are, etc. All of that. That's the longest phase that you're going to have in this growth process because you're pulling that business together and you're further proving and you're putting your touch points in place, everything. But there comes a point where you start reaching a point where you say, okay, I'm ready to grow. I've proven the model. I know it works. Now I'm ready to grow. That's when you move into the funding stage. Because in order to grow your company 10x, 5x, whatever it is, it's going to take money. Whether you're going to self-fund it, whether you're going to bring in an angel investor or go for bank equity funding, any of that, you need to know how much you're going to need, which is where that build process phase comes in. Because by then you know what things are going to cost and you can start building out a forecasted revenue plan so that you know what you're going to need. And then you move into once you get the funding, you move into the growth phase. And that's when you start bringing in new products or expanded products or adjust your pricing or whatever it's going to take to 10x your business.
Right.
So there is a process. The problem is most business owners, they want to jump from the napkin stage or the see it stage straight into the growth stage. And that's where they end up wasting so much money and they end up bleeding money.
Right. Well, and I would love to talk about too, when you were mentioning funding and you're saying, well, you've kind of forecasted things and you've looked at what you think your sales are going to be and the cost of things. I often tell people when they're starting their businesses too, like you can create that forecast, but then what you should do is go back and reduce the revenue that you think you're going to bring in, and you should increase your cost, right?
And
because
that's
most of the time you are, looking with rosy, glasses, and you think you're going to do better than you are, the costs are less. Or I find too that when people are looking at their total costs, they're really not looking at everything that makes up the cost. They might be looking at, if they sell a product, they might say, oh, I buy it at this, so I'm going to sell it at that, and not consider overhead and everything as well that needs to be kind of included. So that's why I say that too, because if you end up reducing your income and, increasing your expenses, but then you do closer to what you originally thought, okay, that's great, right? You have more money in the bank and, your costs were less, but at least you're not taken by surprise if it doesn't work out the way that it does. So I'm sure you've probably seen that a lot with the clients that you work with too, that maybe
many
things
times
aren't as rosy.
Many times. And that's why during the build it stage, you are going through the process of your cash flow analysis and understanding, and you get a true picture of what your expenses are. One of the things that so many, some of the things, but one is commingling of funds.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Especially solo entrepreneurs, they are notorious for commingling funds. And getting them to understand that you can't do that is critical. The other thing is when they set up the business entity, a lot of times if it's a partnership or something, they split the equity equally. And they don't understand, first of all, by doing that, you lose your position of power, first of all. And secondly, where is the equity that you're going to set aside for when you get to that funding stage? So I tell everybody, all my customers, I say, set aside at least 20 to 30% of your shares, your equity shares, for your investors.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right.
there's a lot of little things that they will learn by going through the different courses,
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then also with the academy, what we bring in is we bring in that accountability factor,
Right.
because it's one thing to learn, but with every course that we do, it is a two-pronged approach. You have the learning aspect, but as well, you have what we call the experiential interactive element. So once
Mm-hmm.
you've learned, you immediately go into an interactive portion where you have your tools, so you can start planning for your own business.
Right.
Okay, you can start, so you have a customized approach for each course for your business. So it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't become shelf help,
Right.
is what
That's
it
so
is.
important. Yes.
It
The same
is.
thing
And then
when I train someone, it's the same thing. I say, let's use your paperwork and let me teach you how to do
exactly,
your work, not just like in general, here's how you invoice a customer and receive a payment and things like that. So it's nice to hear that
exactly.
you're letting them kind of customize
Yeah.
that for their own business as well.
And then we also include for any of our subscribers, because it is a subscription base, the bi-weekly group coaching that we bring in.
Okay.
And we also have like a private Facebook page. So they have that support, that resource support. And we do bi-monthly mastermind programs.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's
there's,
important too.
having been there, done that,
Right.
Especially when you're a solo entrepreneur, operating in a vacuum does not work. You
Right.
need to have that feedback. You need to have some kind of accountability
Mm-hmm.
built into your program.
Right. Well, even if, like you were saying, been there, done that, right? But even if you're in a mastermind group with people who are all newer in business too, I think I've been in a mastermind for a really long time. I think it's very valuable, but I think too, even if someone doesn't have all the experience yet too, if you're just sharing your ideas, you're also getting someone else's perspective, and they might have an idea you never even thought of, and it can help you, implement whatever it is that you want to be implementing by taking their perspective. Even if it's not, they've got 5 years more experience than you, it's still, from a perspective of, have you thought of this? And
Right.
what do you think about that?
And it's important to understand that, people are so afraid of revealing secrets,
Mhm.
of their businesses. What they don't realize is they're already out there. They already know them. There's people who are
Mhm.
researching their businesses as
Right.
well as everybody else's. So don't be so afraid of the competition and revealing secrets. What you want to be conscious of is staying one step ahead. So that's where your research comes in, which is critical, because you want to know, if you have not done a SWOT analysis on your business and you have not explored what the opportunities and threats are in the market for your business, you're going to find yourself in the same situation that we just got out of, or just
Right.
coming out of with COVID.
Mhm.
You have to have some kind of mitigation plan in place should something happen, such as what happened with COVID. Now, that was a highly unusual
Right.
element and event. But, another perfect example is the Obamacare. Okay, look at what it initially had done to the insurance, the private insurance business. They were
Yes.
able to turn it around, but still, that's something that is not expected
Right.
when you look at it. So you have
Mhm.
to be able to stay on top of what's and social, solo entrepreneurs and even micro businesses, they get so wrapped up in their business, they don't pay attention to what's going on outside of their
Mm.
business.
Right.
Yeah.
Because again, they're trying to do so much, and
Yep.
there's only so many hours in the day, but they have to get everything done, right? So it's hard to be paying attention to everything that's going on in the environment and around them.
Right.
But I know you talked earlier, you kind of briefly mentioned why, you should follow a sequence, but I wanted to make sure that someone completely understands, well, why can't you just go from the napkin idea phase to growth? Well, like, why do you really need to go through that sequence, and make sure that they completely understand? Because I think some people might think, well, it's good to grow. I'm ready to grow. Like, why is it a bad thing?
Well, there's many reasons that it's a bad thing. First of all, you don't know who your ideal customer is. Okay. You don't know what your pricing structure is going to be. You don't know how you're going to deliver your products. Is it going to be through the wholesale market? Is it going to be online? Is it going to be in a retail store? All of that. You haven't figured all that out. You haven't figured out how are you going to service your customers? What are their expectations? All of this is critical to the growth phase because, like I said, if you can't service your customers, if you can't meet their expectations, all right, you're not going to be able to grow because you're not going to have those customers coming through the door.
Right.
I tell my clients, I jokingly tell them, a business without customers is like being pregnant without a way to deliver.
Mm.
Okay. Men can't necessarily understand that. But women, we definitely can. We can't deliver on what our promises are. That is where we start getting into a very serious issue, whereas people just, bad news spreads faster than good. Okay. And if you start getting a bad reputation, that's going to spread much faster than, your credible reputation.
Right.
Okay. So in fact, that's why the latest book that we had written, I co-wrote it with a very good friend of mine who's in digital marketing, called Social or Sociopathic. That's what we talk about because we're now in a highly virtual and hybrid market. And we're more susceptible to what we call social sociopaths. And those are the individuals that prey on companies, whether it's low pricing or whatever, but they can't deliver. Okay. They're looking to get those payments and everything, but then they can't deliver. And as solo and micro entrepreneurs, we can't afford to do that. So this book is designed to explain how to watch out for them, how to make sure that they are not social sociopaths, but also how to set yourself up online as a credible company,
right.
With social proof and everything. So you don't fall into that category.
Right. Well, and I think if a business tries to grow too fast, too often they don't even have, like you said, the funding available, and there's a lot of things that aren't ready, for that. So again, yes, it would be great to get all these clients, but, I actually did an example for someone who'd come to me at one point and he said, our business continues growing. A couple of years ago, we were a $3 million business. This year, we're going to be about a $10 million business. So I know we're making money, but there's no money in the bank. I don't understand why. And so I was doing some analysis over, a few year period for him and said, do you realize that your profitability has been dropping every year? So in, the 1 year when you had $3 million, you had a much higher profitability on the bottom line than you do now. And you're investing so much in your labor and so much in all these things.
Exactly.
That's what I think it was down to 2 or 3% profitability overall. So yeah, it's great to have that top line $10 million, but if you're only down to 2% where you'd been 16% before, growth in itself is not necessarily the best thing.
That's exactly it. I have a new product that's going to be beta tested the second week in August. If all goes well, it's called the Business Health Check Assessment. And basically, it assesses existing companies across 20 different KPIs, key performance indicators. And those key performance indicators are boiled down into 5 critical areas: your overall operational strength, your overall financial strength, your sales and marketing strength, your product service viability, and the overall health of the business and your management team. Okay. And this assessment gives a score in those 5 critical areas. But what's really cool about this assessment is we can go back into the scoring on each of those 20 different KPIs, and we can identify where the gaps are. Okay. Whether it is, lack of profit, or a decline in profit. I've had companies come to me, or a company come to me, telling me, I need your help. My sales are dropping. I don't understand what's going on. My sales team's just not performing. And when we went in and evaluated a little bit more, I said, wait a minute, we need to look at the whole business rather than just your sales team. Because all of these KPIs that I talk about, okay, sales depends on pricing, it depends on product viability, it depends on your profit margins, it depends on your marketing. There's so much interdependency there that we have to look at. Why are your sales dropping? Is it because your messaging is off? Is it because your product is no longer viable? Do you need to rethink your product makeup or your service makeup? So we have to look at all of those. Perhaps your sales team, maybe they're in the wrong position. Those are all things that have to go into exploring why your sales are falling.
Right.
And so that's what in all, that's what we're all about. MarketAtomy is, let's help these small, micro, and solo entrepreneurs learn how to build a strong business.
Right.
A strong business model. My goal is to ultimately, down the road, my ultimate vision is I want to get in front of Congress and I want to fight for the rights of solo micro entrepreneurs, that if they show that they have gone through the education process of learning how to grow a small business before they get their business license, that they are eligible for incentives through the government to help them for the first 2 years.
I think that's a great idea. I mean, because I've even said too, I have clients, who are doctors and attorneys and all these things, and they went to school to learn their industry, but not how to run the business, right? And so it's so true. I mean, they'll say, yep, you're ready to go start your business, but there's none of the other things that they need to support them to be successful, and I think that's one reason why so many people actually will start a business and they're not able to survive for such a long time because they don't know all of these things. So I think that's a great idea. I hope it happens.
No, definitely. I had one client, he was a physician, and he had already launched his business, and it was an urgent care business, okay, that was only open between the hours of 8 and 5, first of all, okay. Secondly, he had spent his entire allotment for his business on setting up the office, making it beautiful, and things like that. And nothing was left for marketing, nothing was left for, anything else. He had set up, you walk in the office, it was beautiful, things like that. He thought because he was on a busy intersection, that he would attract attention that way. And when I explained to him, I said, first of all, you're talking about an urgent care business, which normally urgent care is needed after hours.
Right.
Okay. Because the physicians are open during hours.
Right.
And then, open during the day is fine because Centric Care and all these other ones, they are, but it's after hour care that is what's important.
Right.
And secondly, he did not meet the expectations of his patients because right down the road, less than a mile down, was an emergency room. And so if they came in with a broken arm or something that needed x-rays, he didn't have the machinery to do it. He'd send them down to the emergency room. Well, these people could have just gone to the emergency room in the first place. So these are the things that you have to take into consideration when you're planning on launching your business, is you have to look at the business as a whole and meeting those customer expectations.
Right. Well, and I know you said you had 2 failed businesses yourself, and I know sometimes people will learn from the mistakes of others. So what's one thing you would do differently that would have gotten you to where you are faster if you had to do it over again?
Well, one business was an advertising agency, and where I failed there is in not knowing what I didn't know, okay, was I had brought in a partner. And again, when I talked about the corporate shares, the split of the company, it was 50-50. So, that's what my downfall was, because they took over the company. second business was a manufacturing business. I manufactured ceramic lamps for the hotel industry. I had gone into it, I had taken it, bought it out from a friend of mine who had cancer. Okay.
Mm.
Okay, I know ceramics. I can, I had worked in ceramics all my life, but it was for fun. It was a hobby. Okay, I get into this manufacturing business and I realize what's involved, and all of a sudden it's not a hobby anymore. I hate it,
Yeah.
So,
Right.
it's you had to worry about logistics, you had to worry about not only the sales, but you had to worry about quality control and all this other stuff. So, those are the things that you have to be thinking about
Mhm.
when you start your business. And
Right.
if you're going to try and do it all, in the second business, I was trying to do it all myself.
Mhm.
You can't do it all yourself.
Right. And I think too, when you were talking about, the equity in the company, I think a lot of times people think, oh, there's two of us, it's just 50-50. But I think they also have to look at how much is each person going to be investing in the business financially and with their time and all of that, and make sure it's also kind of
Yep.
reasonable based on that too. And I don't think they always look at that, because I do know I had someone who had come to me years ago for help with their bookkeeping and things like that too. And the relationship over time started to deteriorate because one person felt, well, I'm just investing in the company, so I get most of the equity. Where the other guy, he was the one that was there, 40, 50, 60 hours a week running the company and not really making much. And over time, that relationship started to sour because the one person felt he wasn't getting compensated, right, based on all of the effort. And the other guy didn't do anything in terms of working in the
Right.
company. So I think really looking at all of those kind of situations
Right.
is really important, and having professional experience guide you on what you should be doing.
Yeah, I'll tell you another little story. When you talk about that, I had a client. They came. It was son and father and son had come to me because they were manufacturers of high-end women's sandals, and they
Mm.
had their connections in China to, they had a manufacturer in China. You know, um, they had everything set up for this. Problem was they had 4 partners, the
Mm.
2 of them and 2 others. The 2 others were non-performing partners,
Mhm.
okay? And they had an IP, they had protection, intellectual property protection on the sandal, and it was a convertible sandal, so you could change out the tops, and things
Oh,
like that.
nice. Mhm.
And they came to me, and all 4 of the partners had 25%.
Mm.
And they came to us, and the reason they came to us is because they wanted to go for funding so that they could expand their business. And when I sat down with them and I started talking to them, I found out that they had no equity left in the company, meaning
Mhm.
stock equity. And I said, well, we can't do anything because you have no available stock entity, to offer. And they went back to their partners to try and get them to release some of their equity so they could make up 25% equity. And the other 2 partners decided, no, they don't want to do that. They just wanted to hold on to their 25%, and not contribute to the company at all. Well, one thing led to another. And what they ended up doing is dissolving the original company, taking the patent and turning around and opening a new company
Mm.
where it was just the 2 of them, the 2 performing, and they were able to get the funding that they needed in order to move forward. But those are the
Mhm.
kind of things that, with me as a growth strategist, we will look at to determine, okay, is this viable? He had
Right.
an excellent product.
Mhm.
Excellent product. He had the manufacturing worked out, they had the price points worked out, everything was there. But they could not get the funding because of the fact that the other 2 partners were holding them over a barrel.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Never a fun place to be.
No, no. So,
So I know this has been a great discussion. I know we're getting close to the end of a time, and I wanted to ask if you have an offer that you would like to share with the listeners.
yes, with Academy, we give free webinars every single month, either 1 or 2 free webinars that can be found on the MarketAtomy.academy website under our calendar, event calendar. We have one coming up August 12th. It's called Can You Hear Me Now? And what it is we have an international linguist coming in.
Mhm.
She's going to talk about, now that we're in a highly virtual environment and our geographic boundaries are expanding, how do we manage communication and cultural exchanges between different countries, different companies, even between the Southeast and the Northeast in the United States? You know, there's different cultural and communication aspects that we need to take notice of. So that is what's going to be happening on August 12th. And then on the 14th, I believe it is, it's actually going to lead to a course that she has developed. Okay, so that we can actually develop our process for managing that.
Okay. And if someone's interested in that, where do they go to, sign up or download whatever you have available?
They go to MarketAtomy, MarketAtomy.academy.
Okay.
And then and then up at the top, if you scroll through the top, you'll see some drop downs, and there's a drop down for calendar of events and then also featured events. The featured events are your webinars, and they can sign up right there if they want.
Perfect. And do you have any other ways that people can connect with you that you would like to share?
Sure, they can reach out to me through my main website, which is MarketAtomy.com, or they can reach me by email at danna.olivo@MarketAtomy.com.
Nice. Well, thank you, Danna, for being a guest on my show today. I really appreciate your sharing your expertise.
No, I appreciate it. This is my passion. This is what I love to do. So I'm here for all of the micro and small business owners out there. So thank you.
Fabulous. And to those small business owners who are listening, thank you for tuning into the show today. I hope you found this topic interesting and that it did answer some of your questions on the 5 stages of growth for the early stage business. If you have any additional questions or comments, be sure to reach out to Danna at any of the links that she shared, or you can send us a message at media@abandp.com. And would you please share our show information with those you know? I'd really appreciate your support. I hope you can join us for next week's topic, Corporate Matchmaker, Creating a Robust Boardroom. And please remember, you can connect with us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and my website is abandp.com. And remember, you can find the podcast posted on multiple favorite podcast platforms, including Google, TuneIn, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Until next time, have a great week.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next Tuesday. Have a terrific week.